ahead here and do the 2-point perspective version of the same thing. Alright, I'm just going to change this frame here so it actually fits our thumbnail sketch in it. So always feel free to rearrange, readjust the framing, what you have there. And we had that low horizon line there. So I'm going to do the same thing here, just copy and paste this to a new layer. Control C, Control V. Okay. So this time we will need to end up making the document a bit larger because we have to have those vanishing points further away for 2-point, as you guys remember from the demos we did during class today. Alright, this is the rough one, thumbnail. Let's turn down the opacity a bit. Lock the layer. New one, and this will be 2-point grid. Okay, so low-ish horizon line, so it comes through the lower, a little bit lower on the building there. All right, so now I need to kind of find where those vanishing points are. I know it will be about here and about here. Okay, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to that green, switch to my line tool, and then I'm going to trace 2 of the major shape lines that recede to the same vanishing point. So all these edges here are going to recede to the same vanishing point, but I'm going to take 2 of them and see where they intersect with that horizon line. So I'm going to start with these. They might need to be adjusted slightly. So this is probably about where that vanishing point will be. Okay, I'm just going to put a dot there for that vanishing point. And then draw a few more of these out. And I will do the same thing over here. So that's a little too steep, how I had it in my rough sketch. So that should work if we do it about there. Okay, put the vanishing point dot there, switch back to the line tool. Okay, now same thing I did with that 1-point grid, same thing I did in kind of the thumbnail version. So now I know, like, I want to have a good strong straight line along the top of those doors and windows, along the bottom there. Same thing here. And I'm just going to throw a few more on there, kind of fill up the space over where my sketch is for the most part, to help me just visualize those 3-dimensional forms that we are creating. I'll turn off the sketch from time to time as well. Alright, that's probably good. We can always add in more if need be. Okay. So I think that should be good to get us started. Okay, I will lock that grid for now. I might adjust the opacity. I'm going to make a new layer just for a frame here. Like I said, sometimes that frame ends up changing a bit, so having that frame on its own layer can be helpful, because we can always resize it or move the move it around or things if need be. Alright, so now we're just going to go ahead. I'm going to lower this opacity just a little bit, some more. So I got my reference photo there. And now I'm just going to start filling in big shapes to small shapes. Start with the cube shapes because those are the easiest. And then start adding on more details as I go. Line work there. Okay. So verticals, I want those to be nice and strong and bold. So I'm just going to use that shift tool for that. Set up the verticals. Okay. Bring that up there. Follow along. So this I'm using the rotate tool. Sometimes it helps me to draw along those lines better, especially when I'm doing freehand, when I don't want to use the ruler tool. Definitely helps to have the right angle for how my arm's traveling on my tablet. Like I said, sometimes it's helpful to have some of the lines done in freehand, some done with the ruler straight line tool. So I have the roof kind of overhanging a little bit more in my sketch than it is in reality or in the reference photo, so I'm going to shorten up that roof there. And again, just placing in where those doors and windows will go. Let's get this guy in there. So again, let's do this one. Can just do this with ellipses for now. Biggest thing is we're looking up on this shape, so those ellipses are going to curve up. Yeah, the center of this of the point there was looking a little off, so I want to adjust that over. So I kind of just eyeballed that, making sure that's about halfway in the middle of the cylinder. Kind of need a little reminder of what that tower looks like. Ellipse will curve up. Okay. So that is a straight edge. I'm basically putting a little cube here on top of the point of the roof there. A little pyramid on top of that. So that's looking okay. All right. I'm just going to go ahead and use a straight line tool there and here. There's another line right along the top. Sometimes I like using this shift click because it does work with that pressure sensitive. So you can see those lines do taper a little bit, so it has kind of a nicer look to it sometimes than using the ruler tool or the line tool. I'm getting that same thing with that ellipse there, so I'm going to go back to that image or filter liquefy there. There we go. Just adjust that ellipse just a little bit. All right, so that's pretty much the basic shapes there. Again, you know, that's what we're looking for to start out. And once you get those, it's going to be a lot easier to fill everything else in. All right, so top of the window is going to line up with the top of the doorway. So I have this line going to the vanishing point here. So I know that will be the top of my door and the top of the windows. Bottom of the window there. Get a nice strong vertical in there. And this is kind of just planning out where they are going to be placed. And then I'm going to do that same thing as last time and make sure they are recessed in there. All right. So I want the top of all these windows to line up. So I'm just kind of, so this line here will hit right there. So I don't have a green line there that lines up with there. So I can always go back to my 2-point grid and then have this come all the way, let me zoom out, all the way over there to the vanishing point. That will help me set up the top of the windows there. And then same with for the bottom of the windows, I will do it from here over to there. Always make sure I get back on my line work layer. You guys have probably done that where you start drawing on the wrong layer and get halfway through a drawing. Very frustrating. Realize half your drawing's on the wrong layer. Okay, cool. This is coming along. So this is that little gray section at the bottom. We'll add some stairs in there in a sec. And here I'm just going to kind of eyeball this. Alright, so we do need to add that little extra part here. So it's just a square here on the front. And again, I can kind of start to eyeball this. This is going to go back to the other vanishing point, so it's going to slope down. I'm kind of just looking and keeping it equidistant from this line right there. Again, if it looks right in your drawing, then that will count. This one goes back along that line. That will slope there. Always draw through, and then you can always erase later on. Drawing through is a very useful tool in figure drawing and perspective drawing. You can always erase out underneath. If it's a rough sketch, you can just leave it there as well. All right, how is this looking? Cool. So that's looking pretty accurate. You know, always kind of go back and judge, see how things are. Wrong layer. So same idea as before. 2-point grid. So these windows are all above the horizon line, so I'm just trying to get that recessed look in there, so you will see. This edge here and that top edge. You won't see this bottom edge or this edge here because that is not in our view there. So slant downward, slant downwards, follow that grid line. Add that little decorative element on top. So I'm just going to kind of do it on this one side just to save time. So I would be doing the same thing over there as well. There is a little thickness to this part here. So yeah, when you're choosing those photos, again, I kind of recommend choosing something a little more simple to make sure you have the basics down. And as the semester goes on, we are going to get more complicated. So starting with something relatively kind of simpler to make sure you understand it is going to be good and useful for you guys. How did I design those steps? Okay, right there. All right. So again, I do want to see details like, you know, the piping. There is a slight bit of texture on there. And, you know, even now that I'm looking at this closely, this gray part does come out just a little bit like that. So you will see that here and here. Widens at that base just a little bit. That one is kind of coming right at us, so it can stay how it is. Okay, so yeah, you can feel free to go in, add storytelling stuff, enough details and some texture. You add kind of any sort of horizontal lines here for texture on the roof. That will follow that 2-point perspective. You don't need to draw every single thing or every single shingle. Lost and found, a suggestion of texture. It more closely mimics reality when you do that, because when we look at a roof of a building just going through our day-to-day life, we don't notice every single shingle, but we get an overall impression of that texture. Treat it as kind of simple pattern. Like I said, you can add, you know, some stuff, storytelling. Like I really like dirtying stuff up, making it look used, making it look, the building look lived in, weathered, things like that. I'm just kind of making up what that top window might look like. This has a little rectangle on it up here, decorative element. These are ellipses that wrap around. Sometimes it's helpful to draw through, kind of draw the back side of that ellipse. I know that helps me sometimes. So again, here I could kind of come in and straighten up these edges. I think it might actually be like an octagon or some sort of shape in there. So if I want to come in and do that. But really when it's that many sides, it's going to feel a lot like an ellipse as well. These windows definitely are recessed, so I do want to see those looking like they're going back inside of that wall of the tower. Okay. So yeah, there will be a bit more to add here. You can really see some very subtle kind of brick texture on here as well. It looks like it's painted brick, so you can see just a little bit of that. So I would like to see a little bit of that texture if the building you're working on, you know, maybe it's wood plank or panel building, so you would just have a little bit of the texture of whatever that building's made of. Again, I kind of like to add grit and grime to stuff. And what I didn't do on the last one, but what you should do is add just a little bit of value. Okay, so value, think about that light source, whatever makes sense. So when you're adding light sources to things, generally you want, in 2-point, you want one side to be in light and one side to be in shadow. That's going to be a really good way to get depth on there. So as I'm doing that, I just want to add some simple values here. So this is kind of a cylinder there. The light's coming from above, so underneath this little guy we'll have shadow. This side we'll have shadow. Shadow there. And then this will be in shadow on this side. This could even be like a little bit lighter. I might lighten this up after I get it all blocked in. You know, if this was a more, you know, a finished final illustration rather than just kind of a study, we might be a little bit more careful with this. But for our purposes, we just want to give it a sense, a light source and a sense of three-dimensional volume there. So right under that little lip, we'll get some shadow. Remember, these are recessed, so they'll get a little shadow in there. And feel free to throw in, you know, a cast shadow on the ground as well. Let's lighten that just a little bit for our purposes. I just did Command U or Control U on PC just to lighten up those values. So something about like that. You should add this level of detail over on this side as well. Look for those storytelling details, pipes, gutters, electrical wires, anything like that that will make it interesting. But yeah, so next video we'll go into the fun, complicated 3-point perspective, but that's kind of the idea of what it should look like there to finish it off there for 2-point.